Delta Force, bland. Gray Zone Warfare, unoptimized. The Cycle Frontier, dead game. The extraction shooter genre isn't dying. But let's be honest, guys. It's starting to feel a little stale. While games like Escape from Tarkov, Hunt Showdown, and Dark and Darker dominate the scene, every new entry seems to come and go without making a lasting impact. Why aren't these games shaking things up? And more importantly, what needs to change to bring fresh life into this genre? Let's start with why so many new extraction shooters are struggling. The big issue is that these games are competing with giants. Games like Tarkov and Hunt that have had literal years, sometimes even decades, to build their foundation. Tarkov, for example, has been in development for over a decade. That's a decade of updates, mechanics, patches, and a loyal community. New games don't have that time. They're often rushed into early access and end up lacking the features and polish that players expect from this genre. Another issue is identity. Too many of these games feel like a copy-paste version of what already exists. Like, look at DMZ. It's an interesting mode in Call of Duty, but doesn't bring enough to make it stand out. Or even Arena Breakout, which had like a lot of potential, but lost players with pay-to-win mechanics. Players want innovation, not a watered-down version of the same game they've already spent hundreds of hours in. And here's the thing. Competition is critical for any genre to thrive. When you only have one or two games leading the charge, the genre starts to feel stagnant. Think about Hunt Showdown. Its cowboy horror aesthetic and unique monster hunting mechanic gave it a flavor that nothing else had. Or Dark and Darker, which took the genre into a medieval fantasy. These games succeed because they did something different. And now, I'm not saying that these games are without their flaws or without their mistakes. They've definitely had some hiccups and pitfalls in their development, in their peaks and lows. But what I'm trying to say is that these new extraction shooters, they are lacking something that these games were not lacking. If every new game feels like a Tarkov clone, why would players bother leaving the original? To keep the genre alive, we need more games that challenge the status quo. Now, this video isn't about praising Tarkov. I know some people leave Tarkov for certain reasons and they are more than valid to do so. What I'm speaking about is strictly the core and the depth of what the game is about, and then also being able to be developed into something better. Because at the end of the day, if Tarkov stayed where it was at the beginning of its creation, it would not have been as big as it is now. One of the big challenges facing extraction shooters, both past and present, isn't just about gameplay or mechanics. It's about something deeper, the relationship between developers and the community. And here's where games like Escape from Tarkov and Hunt Showdown can teach us a lot. Let's take Tarkov as an example. Tarkov has always been a game with a massive potential and a diehard community. I, for one, am a part of that community. But one of its biggest struggle, if you ask anybody in the Tarkov community, is them listening and balancing community feedback. For years, Tarkov players have raised concerns about cheaters, optimization, and controversial updates that sometimes battle state games respond quickly, but other times their communication can feel non-existent. Changes can come out of nowhere without much warning or explanation, and that leaves the community feeling unheard, no pun intended. When problems like desync or cheaters aren't fully addressed, players start asking, why am I investing my time here? Tarkov's community has stuck around because the core game is strong, but that relationship feels strained when feedback doesn't lead to visible action. And here's the lesson for developers. Communication matters. I know that sometimes it feels like the development of the game is more crucial and important than communication, but really, communication and development goes hand in hand. If you're building an extraction shooter, staying transparent, clear, and responsive to the player base is critical. It gives them a sense of respect for their intelligence. They feel like they are respected by you, the community that is. Ignoring or mishandling feedback is how you lose trust. And once it's gone, it's hard to get back. And that's kind of what we're looking and observing at with Tarkov currently. Now let's look at Hunt Showdown. Hunt has one of the most unique identities in gaming. It's a mix of PvP and PvE, and its hard western atmosphere are unmatched. But even Hunt has its rocky moments. Over the years, Crytek has made balance changes that have left parts of the community feeling alienated. Whether it's nerfing fan favorite weapons or introducing new content that feels unnecessary, these decisions have sometimes divided Hunt players. One of the current controversial debates is the Post Malone event that they introduced. It split the community in half. Another issue Hunt faces is the pace of updates. Crytek's events are great, but between major updates, players can feel like the game is stagnating. This lull in content risks losing players to other games. And I know when playing Hunt, that gap between each event feels very, very long. But truthfully, I will give them grace where grace is due. It takes a long time to create an event, but sometimes what could help make that gap and that divide smaller is transparent and consistent communication. The takeaway here is that consistency is key. Regular updates, meaningful changes, and keeping the game feeling fresh is what helps the game survive in the long run. Crytek has learned this the hard way, but they've also shown us that players are willing to come back if you get it right. Both Tarkov and Hunt show us that a successful extraction shooter needs more than good gameplay. It needs a strong developer community relationship. Players want to feel like their feedback matters, like they're heard, like they're being listened to. They want to see the game improve over time. They want developers who don't just listen but act. At the end of the day, no extraction shooter is perfect. Even the best ones have flaws. But the developers who listen, adapt, and respond to their communities are the ones who will keep this genre alive and thriving. So what do new extraction shooters need to thrive? First, they need a unique identity. Something that sets them apart, like Hunt's aesthetic or Tarkov's brutal realism. If your game feels generic, it won't hold a player's attention. Second, technical stability is huge. Games like Gray Zone Warfare struggle because they're poorly optimized, and not everyone can afford a high-end gaming PC. If a game runs poorly, players will leave. And you can even see this in the top 3 extraction shooters. They have stability issues, whether it comes to servers or desync or cheaters, and you see people leaving because of that. And third, depth. I would say this is probably the biggest one out of all 3, and that's players are willing to invest time into complex mechanics if they're done well. Tarkov proves that with its steep learning curve. A casual game might be fun for a while, but a game with depth keeps players coming back. And I know some people might argue that a game with depth could also turn new players away because of the commitment and demand that it asks for. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt, as a person who plays extraction shooters, that people who want to play in this category of games, in this genre of games, they will put their time in a game that 1, respects their time, and 2, that's well designed and created. If the game is good and has a good game loop and mechanics, people would put their time into it. But if a game lacks even the fundamentals of an identity, it's only gonna be hype before it goes down. At the end of the day, the best games come from passion, creativity, and a desire to innovate. It's not just about launching with hype. We've seen that with a lot of different games. Gray Zone Warfare, Arena Breakout. Developers need to engage with the community, deliver updates, and build a game that players are proud to stick with. Without that heart, even a well-made game can fade quickly. And look, I love extraction shooters. The intensity, the stakes, the thrill of extracting with all that loot, it's a feeling that no other game has ever given me, game category has ever given me. It's some of the best gaming out there, truthfully. But I want to see more games succeed. I want developers to take risks and bring something new to the table. Because if we keep relying on just a few big names, this genre could stagnate, and none of us want that. So what do you think? You think extraction shooters are failing because they lack innovation, or is it something else? Maybe something that's not in this video. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments. I read all of them, so definitely put them in there, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. Let's keep this conversation going. I think this is a very honest and brutal conversation about the state of extraction shooters. Thank you for watching till the end of the video. I appreciate it. You guys stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next video.